to get the game ball or the championship game and bring a championship back to the city of Chicago. And it happened on Father's Day, which it makes it even more special. And I think we all should, even if we're not together next year, which I hope we are together. I mean, this has been a very, very special year.
To bring this team together in one season, to bring back Michael, to bring Dennis here, this is very special because, I think we all, as players, as individuals, had a lot that we wanted to prove and that we wanted to show the world that, we were still the greatest team.
We just kept waiting for that game to show up where we play well. We didn't shoot well again tonight, but I thought we shot consistently from 3 points at least, and we got the inside-outside game going, and that's what made it a sweet game. And every time we needed a big basket, every time we had to step up, every time they made a run, we were able to hold them back.
They showed that they belong in history. I mean, they had the best regular season record ever, and they played very well in the playoffs, and they won the championship. So they're obviously a great team, if you want to say that. They consider them with all the other teams, they have a better record than anybody else.
Boy, what a couple of days. The Bulls went from venerable to vulnerable to back home, where they just pumped up the volume on their energy, execution, and locked up the championship. My colleague Fred Hickman made the trip to Chicago, saw it all in person. Fred, there was some doubt, but it seemed only for a while, huh?
Well, I think so, Nick. The Seattle Supersonics played a tremendous last couple of games, and they played with a lot of heart tonight. But this Chicago team, much different from the ones that won the championships before, is just kind of an assemblage of ragtag guys who just wanted to get out there and work together. That work ethic is probably summed up in Dennis Rodman better than anyone else. 11 offensive rebounds, 19 total tonight. And after the game, we caught up with Dennis Rodman and talked it over.
Well, I said it when I first came here. I did an interview. I did a press conference. I said that I came here for one reason. An opportunity doesn't knock too often, but it came to me when I first came here. I said, I come here to win a championship. I come here to do a job well done. And I said, if I don't do that, if I don't bring you what you want, I need to pack my bags and go elsewhere. And I think that I put the pressure on the people and put on myself. But I deliver now. Now the people and the organization should bring it back to me. I've gave the people what they want, and now I hope the people get what I want.
That brings us to the future. I guess I should ask you about that. Is your desire to stay here in Chicago with the Bulls?
I would love to stay in Chicago. I think this is my home now. I think this is where the Buffalo roams, and if they want me back, I would love to stay here. And I think the people really appreciate the things that I do. And like I said, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and what you see is what you get, and hopefully that it'll be worthwhile next year.
It's an interesting thing. A lot of people have talked about the influence that Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and the rest of the guys have had on you, but they rarely talk about the influence you've had on them. It seems to be a much harder working team this year since you've gotten here.
Most harder work. I mean, this team here is very determined. I mean, everyone was very confident. And the thing about this team here, everyone knew what they had to do as an individual. The space, the loneliness, the comfort. We had all those things we had to work with. We knew when we had to be around people. We knew we had to not be around individuals. And people don't give us credit for that. And this team, we've been through a lot. The pressures that has been thrown upon the Bulls all year long. And we withstand everything that people throwing at us. Hopefully that next year this team will stay intact.
Final question. Is this your happiest moment in basketball?
I think it is one of the happiest moments. I think the first happiest moment for me is my little girl, Alexis. She's the most important thing to me in the world, and I hope she watched it and she was happy for me. And I think the second most memorable thing I could say, I think just being drafted and given the opportunity to be in this league. And the third thing, I think just knowing that I've been mentally, physically, and strong enough to survive all the outside just taunting and things like that. And I went across the green, but I didn't go too far. I'm still here, solid ground, right here, celebrating the championship again.
And they certainly love him in Chicago and what he has delivered to the Chicago Bulls, their 4th championship in 6 years. We'll talk to Michael Jordan also tonight, and when we come back to Chicago, I'll be chatting with him and sharing that conversation with you. But right now, let's go back to Atlanta and Nick.
Boy, a lot of pride, a lot of humility, Fred, and home on the range, huh, Mike?
Right.
Back at the studio with our analyst, Mike Glenn, Dennis Rodman implied really right after the game, but somebody sort of ran it down to him about how his game had fallen off in the losses in Seattle. Whatever happened, it ignited a flame tonight, Mike.
It certainly did. I think it's Michael Jordan, Nick. Michael keeps everybody playing their best. He keeps them focused, and the 19 rebounds came up big tonight, Nick. They needed him to be big, and he had some key efforts, key energies there. When Seattle was about to make a run, he would always come up with the tip in, the defensive play, 11 offensive rebounds, just did a fantastic job, and he gave them all the support they needed with the good hands, always there to finish up the play for the Bulls.
You think he rattled them a little bit? Sean Kemp said, nah, he didn't bother us, but did he?
Not Sean Kemp. You know, Sean Kemp was consistent throughout, Nick, but I think some of the other players got a little rattled by Dennis, but Dennis was able to be productive. Rattled him or not, he was a productive figure.
Mike, Scottie Pippen virtually disappeared after the first 2 games. He was hurt, he was tentative. Tonight, he was transformed, though. He brought everything onto that court.
He did, Nick. It seemed he was pressing in the earlier games, but this game, he let his defense kind of lead his offense. He got in transition, and this is where I think Scottie is at his best, when he's running the ball club, hitting other people, and offensively when he's posting up. But they got pure Scottie tonight with the 4 steals in the first half. He passed the ball well, and he was able to knock down that 3-point shot, which was another key. People drove, penetrated, kicked out. Scottie shot it with confidence.
You know, the other thing, I mean, I would think that Seattle said, look, the object, don't get the ball in Michael's hand. Let somebody else beat you. And that's really what happened. They spread the ball around beautifully, didn't they, Mike?
They did an excellent job of spreading the floor. You know, Ron Harper was a big element in spreading that floor, and also Scottie doing a good job of spotting up. You have to take some pressure off Michael by having an inside and outside game. They had it all working tonight.
Okay, we're going to hear from Michael a little bit later in this half hour, so stay with us. But the Bulls had won too many games, set too many records to lose their grip and force a Game 7. They had to close it out tonight. Well, it finished 15-3 for the playoffs, 72 regular season wins. How about 87-13 and another ring? Well, after a 2-year hiatus when the Houston Rockets had the audacity and the talent to win it all, the NBA championship is back in Chicago tonight. Michael Jordan had unfinished business left, unfinished in last year's playoffs. But Jordan came back with a vengeance. He was the series MVP. They added Dennis Rodman to the mix, and the chemistry was perfect. And tonight, they won another title. We go now to Chicago and Jeff Flock. This has become a habit for you, Jeff, 4 and 6 years. Is the feeling any different this time out on the streets?
Well, the big difference so far tonight, Fred, Nick, I'm sorry. Although you can see, obviously, a pandemonium kind of ensuing out on the street here. So far, no trouble. Let's take a look inside. The celebration goes inside and outside here at this hour. Inside the Excalibur nightclub, perhaps you can see them out of control there as well. Let's take a look from a high perspective also. This is Ontario Street, which is wall-to-wall cars. People hanging out of cars, dressed in Bulls jerseys, high fives, young, old, white, black. An amazing celebration going on. But although we're perhaps inciting some of the craziness here as we're live out here on the street right now, so far no problems, no serious problems, no looting, and that is a key concern. The city spent upwards of $3 million trying to make certain that no celebration was inappropriate, no looting, no violence or vandalism or any kind of that. So in answer to your question, so far so good this year, unlike a couple of previous years. Nick?
Jeff, what's your read on it? Was the public service announcement and the Bulls imploring the people to cool it, or did the city imply that it would crack down? Why do you think it's calmer than usual?
Well, maybe some class after 4 times in 6 years. I think part of that is the experience of it. I think everyone plays like Michael Jordan, wants to be like Mike, and show some class. And I think also those public service announcements with the likes of Dennis Rodman himself, maybe not your poster boy for decorum, but still, I think that had an impact, Nick.
Jeff Flock, thank you. You are one cool customer. You see that, Mike? His tie wasn't even ruffled and all that excitement. We know what that's all about. You know, we were watching the game, and in the third quarter, the Bulls sort of hit that snag. Then they just kicked it up a notch in the fourth quarter. What do you think happened?
I think the spacing was the key, Nick. They were able to penetrate to the middle and kick out on the perimeter. Everything wasn't forced. Everything wasn't able to be double teamed. Take a look at Harper here. See the drive, the penetration. Scottie Pippen just stays focused and knocks down the 3 comfortably. And also Tony Kukoc. Look at the old Chicago Bulls split. They ran this back in the days when Noah Van Leer was at guard. And Kukoc knocks down the jumper. That movement, that spacing, that execution, they were big keys, and they played with a lot of confidence.
All right, they really spread it around, spread the scoring around, and again, that defense, Mike, 75 points you give up.
Impressive.
Well, the Bulls straightened out everything that was ailing them in Seattle for the couple of games. Everybody raised their level of play, as Mike said. This team got back in sync and let the talent flow. And now it's all over. And we go back inside the United Center where Mark Morgan joins us with more. Mark?
Nick, remember when a lot of these so-called experts said that the acquisition of Dennis Rodman would destroy the Bulls' chemistry? The exact reverse has happened. Rodman really kind of was the final piece of this puzzle and brought this team together. You know, he had 2 subpar performances out in Seattle, but he really rebounded and sparked a crucial third-quarter surge here in Game 6. Now, in a 2-minute span in the third quarter, Rodman scored 5 unanswered points, stole the ball twice, and also picked up an assist, and it was that 2-minute span that broke the Sonics back.
Rodman is a very intelligent basketball player. For him to not be a scorer, but is very effective on the floor, should let people know that this guy knows how to play the game. You look at his hair, you look at his tattoos, but people don't look at the intelligence that this guy has, the knowledge that he has of the game. He makes a huge difference.
He goes out in a game like this and gets 19 rebounds. What are you going to talk about his antics? No. He's a great rebounder and he earned his paycheck.
And I think Dennis he dedicated himself to come and help this city win another championship. And to his credit, he's done a good job in mentally focusing himself, not to be too much of a diversion, not to say he wasn't a little bit, but we've been able to maintain a certain focus, and yet we have accomplished this dream.
Dennis and I hit it off very well. I was proud of him during the playoffs. I was pleased with his performance. I think tonight was an example with 19 rebounds of his effort and his energy that he gives the basketball club.
And energy is obviously the key word here. And the thing a lot of people forget about Dennis Rodman is his work ethic. And he really epitomizes what the Chicago Bulls team is all about, is a relentless work ethic. That's why they have their 4th title in the last 6 years. The numbers for Rodman tonight, Fred mentioned them a minute ago. 19 rebounds, 11 on the offensive end. He goes 38 minutes. He only scores 9 points, but again, 5 of those in that huge 2-minute span in the third quarter when the Bulls sprinted away. And as far as Rodman is concerned, his 3rd championship ring, the first 2 with the Detroit Pistons and the Bulls, as we said, their 4th title in the last 6 years. Nick?
Well, Mark, you really nailed it. Being the best at what you do best and doing it in crucial times. That's what Dennis Rodman did tonight. We'll talk to you in a moment, but still more to come on the show. They just won a title, but we're not cutting the champs any slack. We'll talk about what the Bulls have to do to repeat next year. We'll go back to Chicago for more interviews and analysis and hear from the man you've been waiting to hear from, Michael Jordan, at length. Stay with us.
And welcome back to This Week in the NBA in Chicago. Freddie Hickman here, where the Bulls have defeated the Seattle Supersonics 87-75 in Game 6 of the championship series. They take that series 4-2. You want heroes? There are so many of them. Ron Harper playing tonight on a game knee, but playing great defense on Gary Payton to help spark the Bulls. This team shot 39% from the field and yet still managed to win. So lots of heroes, but I have to tell you that the guy who stirs the drink is indeed Michael Jordan. Tremendous player. We sat down and talked about it after the game was over, and we talked about the 18 months he spent away from the game playing baseball and how it helped him in this effort.
It was unbelievable medicine for me to get away from the game, and those minor league players that I played with, and some of them are in the majors now, you know, they gave me the motivation and enjoyment of playing the game of basketball once again. And when I came back last year, you know, I went through a disappointment through Orlando's beating us, and I think, but that turned into a positive for me. You know, it put me back in the gym, back with the weights. My trainer really worked me out this summer. My wife and my kids supported me when I really didn't feel like I wanted to go out and do that. And you know, it's finally come to a very successful season. I mean, we went through the acquisition of Dennis Rodman, which no one knew how he was going to fit on this team, and he's fit very perfectly. I mean, with Phil and his people's relationship, you know, and his personality, I think he was able to bond some very uncharacteristic personalities together, and yet it's kind of come to a head today with a successful win.
Yeah, it was kind of a ring of nomads out there. You know, the Luke, you got them from Australia, from all over the place out there.
Well, I mean, when it comes to winning, You know, it doesn't matter what type of personality you may have, as long as you focus as a team and bond together as a team. And, you know, Dennis did a lot of different things on his own time, and, you know, I did a lot of different things. Scotty did a lot of different things. But when we stepped on that basketball court, we were connected, and that's the most important thing.
Special day for you because it is Father's Day. All of us watching saw you go into the locker room. Many of us over the years have seen your dad here for these ball games. Talk about how special it is to win it today for him.
Well, I wanted some time for myself, you know, just to say thanks and say a prayer for him, and to really show my appreciation for the gift that, you know, God's given me, and the teaching that he and my mother has taught me. And so I went peacefully back in the room and bawled my eyes out, and came back and stood up there with the team that had really seemed to be focused all season long. And it meant a lot just to give me that chance to say thanks. And you know, he's been with me all season long, and you know, ever since he's been gone, and he's been in my heart. And it was a heavy day for me, you know, to focus. But you know, the most important thing is my family. You know, my wife, my kids, my brothers and sisters, my mother, and this is an added gift, and it's a tribute to him.
Final question, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask it. It's soon. But what do you do from here? I mean, you know, you're out there, Phil's out there, Dennis is out there. What's going to happen in your opinion?
Well, you know, I'm a firm believer if you win a championship, keep the team together. And, you know, I'm so bonded with Scotty and with Phil, and I began to bond with Dennis, and I hate to see anything disrupt that. I mean, we've been very successful, but, you know, it's going to be a lot of business decisions made this summer, and eventually I'm going to have to make one. Hopefully I don't have to make a difficult one, but I'm going to have to make one, and hopefully it can be back in Chicago.
And I can report to you that I saw something in Michael Jordan's eyes I haven't seen in quite a while, and that something was relief. What about Phil Jackson and his future in Chicago? We'll talk about that when This Week in the NBA continues from Chicago and Atlanta after this.
Phil Jackson just coached the Chicago Bulls to a fourth NBA title in 6 years, and the timing for him couldn't be better. His contract is up. Jackson's a free agent, and being the 18th highest paid coach is due for a gigantic raise. Bulls owner Jerry Reinsdorf says he'll pay Jackson top coaching dollars. But don't compare him to the coach, to the $3 million man Pat Riley or newcomer John Calipari, because both of those guys are also GMs. Jackson may take that as an insult. And rumor has it he could take a year off and take a sabbatical at his spread in Montana. Well, Mike, you know, the crown's just been placed on the Bulls' head, and now we're already looking ahead. Can they win it again with a pat hand? They're long on the tooth. They got a lot of guys in their 30s and 35.
They certainly do, Nick. If any changes, I think, around the perimeter, maybe John Salley, maybe James Edwards, two guys the most long in the tooth, but everything else, I think they'll keep it together.
Charles Barkley's talking about winning a title sometime. Any chance of him winding up in Chicago?
You know, I don't think Chicago would make that drastic a move, but we've heard a lot of other places that Charles may go. The Knicks, supposedly they want 3 first-round draft picks and Charles Oakley for Charles Barkley.
Indiana, maybe Houston. It's going to get interesting.
Yes.
Well, back with more right after this. Stay with us. Well, Mike, never a dull moment for us. The championship's in the bag for Chicago. We talk draft next week on the show.
Absolutely. Should be interesting. And we salute Seattle. They had a great team.
They really did. And thanks to our crew in Chicago, Mark Morgan and Fred Hickman, and for everybody here on This Week in the NBA, thanks for being with us. Chicago wins a title again. The Bulls are world champions, and here we see the aftermath of what it took. 72 regular season wins, 85-13. Dennis Rodman, the chemistry, the fit was just right. 4 championships in 6 years. The team of the 90s, the Chicago Bulls. Good night, everybody.
Tonight, only 5 of 19, but 11 of 12. 6-game victory.
This is the place for in-depth coverage of the world of sports from morning to night. This is CNN.